The Shal'ren Empire had explored 1,000 worlds. They had mapped storms made of molten glass. They had survived cosmic radiation bursts, gravity tides, even sentient fungus. Nothing scared them anymore. Until they attended Earth's first diplomatic summit. Humans dressed nicely, smiled politely, offered snacks. Everything seemed normal until the aliens saw a blue metal can floating in a bucket of ice. Bud Light. A human cracked one open. The aliens leaned in. The human drank it casually. And the aliens, eager to be respectful, desperate not to offend, did what any well-trained diplomat would do. They copied the gesture. They opened a Bud Light. They drank it. And that is the moment the galaxy discovered a terrifying truth. Humans don't just survive their toxic, unpredictable, dangerous homeworld. They brew hazard-level liquids for fun and drink them during political negotiations. The Shal'ren thought alcohol was a weapon. They thought carbonation was internal pressure failure. They thought mild intoxication was a neurological attack. They thought a single sip was the end. They were wrong. It was only the beginning. Because once alien diplomats accidentally tried Bud Light out of cultural respect, chaos followed. And the galaxy would never look at humans or their beverages the same way again. The first interstellar diplomatic summit on Earth was going suspiciously well. The Shal'ren delegation, sleek, tall, bioluminescent aliens with translucent skin and far too many opinions, had landed in Washington under tight security and even tighter PR scripting. No weapons, no sudden moves, no weird Earth food. That last rule did not survive the welcome reception. Ambassador Sarah Vega watched from the edge of the crowded hall, nerves hidden under a practiced smile. Flags hung, translators hummed, cameras stayed just far enough back. On one side, humans in polite suits. On the other, Shal'ren diplomats in shimmering garments that shifted color when they spoke. In the center, to Sarah's mild horror, stood the refreshments table. Silver trays, neat rows of glasses, and at the far end, a big, ice-filled tub, blue label shining under the lights. Bud Light. Sarah grabbed the arm of her assistant. "Why is there beer here?" "It's a reception," he whispered. We always weren't hosting our first alien visitors," she hissed. The president wanted casual, relatable Earth culture. On the Shal'ren side, Ambassador Tesei leaned toward their cultural liaison, feathery sensory filaments shimmering. That container, the blue cylinders in ice, many humans approach, retrieve one, and appear pleased. That is likely a ritual hydration station. Humans surrounded by cameras will only consume safe substances. It must be their version of formal water. They watched a human man in a blazer crack open a can, take a long drink, smile, and nod at a colleague. "See?" the liaison said confidently. "Sign of social acceptance. We must not offend." Tesei's filaments fluttered anxiously. "We studied 87 documents on human etiquette. None referenced Bud Light." "Perhaps it is a regional honor fluid," the liaison suggested. "Their garments bear similar symbols. See?" He pointed to a guest wearing a t-shirt under his coat with the same blue logo. "Ah," Tesei said, relieved. "A clan marker. Then sharing it must be significant." Sarah saw it happen as if in slow motion. a Shal'ren attendant glided toward the beer tub with ceremonial calm, picked up a can of Bud Light, turned to Tisei, bowed, and offered it with both delicate hands. Sarah's soul left her body. Tisei, wanting to show maximum cultural respect, accepted the strange metal cylinder like it was made of sacred crystal. "How does one open a human clan fluid?" they asked. The liaison consulted his notes, panicked, and bluffed, "I believe you snap the top. It releases hospitality." Tisei nodded gravely. The room seemed to hold its breath as the first alien hand ever gripped the cool aluminum of a Bud Light. And then, of course, they opened it and drank.
Tisei had tasted many things in their career. Mineral infusions from the crystal moons of Hara, spiced protozoa from pressure sea farms. Once a diplomatic mistake involving fermented sulfur vapor that nearly ended an alliance. Bud Light was new. They lifted the can with both hands, tipped it carefully, and let the pale liquid flow into their mouth. The taste hit like a confused memory, faint grains, carbonation, cold, something vaguely bitter, but gentle, like a polite disagreement. Tisei swallowed. Their internal chemistry whirred. Sensors flagged. Ethanol detected. Ah, Tisei thought, a mild antiseptic. Perhaps they sterilized their fluids for formal events? Across the room, Sarah grabbed a Secret Service agent. "If that alien falls over, you tackle them softly." The liaison watched Tisei expectantly. "Well?" Tisei considered. "It is not unpleasant," they said, mildly numbing, a bit like the pre-surgery rinse on Vesh, but with tiny bubbles. The liaison's eyes widened. Pre-surgery? They drink pre-surgery fluids socially? Tisei noticed humans watching, wide-eyed, tense, half-smiling like they weren't sure if this was allowed. A human approached, a middle-aged man with a diplomatic badge and the relaxed swagger of someone who didn't realize history was happening. "Like it?" he asked, raising his own can. Tisei tilted his head. "This is your hydration ritual?" The man snorted. "Something like that. First contact calls for a beer, right?" Tisei's filaments flashed in alarm. What?" He said, "Beer. Bud Light. Classic, easy, social. You know, cheers." He tapped his can gently against Tisei's. The translator rendered beer as fermented recreational toxin. Tisei froze. "Recreational?" they repeated slowly. "Toxin?" Their biochemistry pinged again. Ethanol diffusing. Mild nervous system effect approaching. Do humans habitually ingest neurotoxins in diplomatic settings? Tisei asked carefully. The man grinned. "Buddy, we do it at wordings, birthdays, football games, after work, during bad movies, and when our team loses in overtime. This is the classy version." The translator strained, trying to map buddy, football, and overtime into anything that made civilized sense. It failed. Tisei's mind raced. They had accepted a human toxin to prove respect. Their people were watching from orbit. The galaxy's first impression of humans is they share neurochemical destabilizers as a friendly gesture? Tisei took another cautious sip. The warmth spread. Edges softened. The room's colors brightened. They said slowly. I feel strange." "Nice, huh?" the man said. "Lightweight stuff. We started you soft. You should be fine." "Soft?" the liaison whispered, horrified. Tisei looked down at the can. "How many of these," Tisei asked, "do humans consume in a single sitting?" The man thought. "Depends who you're asking. Me? 3 or 4 at a barbecue. College kids? Case and a half." The translator rendered case and a half as approximately 24 units in war feast scenario. Tisei's entire nervous system lit up. They stared at the small metal cylinder in their hand. Humans, they realized, did not merely flirt with poison. They party with it.
Back on the Shal'ren flagship in orbit, the live diplomatic feed was being watched by about 6 million people. No one had expected the first historic sip of alien beverage exchange to be Bud Light. "Is the ambassador intoxicated?" someone asked in the command gallery. "We are detecting mild ethanol uptake, but within non-lethal limits." "Humans have a concept of non-lethal toxins at social events," the tactical officer muttered. "I am reconsidering our threat assessments." On the ground, Tsei was beginning to feel the edges of what humans call a buzz. Their sensory filaments tingled, sounds gained extra layers, emotional responses felt closer. They watched a group of humans laugh too loudly at a mediocre joke. They felt a small alien echo of that urge to laugh anyway. "This Bud Light," Tsei began. "Yes," Sarah said carefully, stepping in before her staff made things worse. Tsei turned their glowing eyes to her. "Is this the weakest toxin you serve?" Sarah's brain ran a quick PR calculation and chose honesty. "Among beers, yes. Among all alcohol, not even close," the liaison whimpered quietly. "So you have stronger variants of this chemical, which you ingest at social gatherings, while operating heavy emotional machinery." "Emotional machinery?" Sarah repeated. "Family bonds, sports loyalties, romantic confession attempts." "Ah, yeah, that's, accurate." The translator, forced to map "drunk texting your ex" into formal diplomatic language, quietly overheated. Tsei finished the can. Their internal readouts ticked up. Balance slightly compromised, inhibition down a fraction, curiosity way up. Their people were still watching. They needed to project strength. "Ambassador," Sarah said, "you don't have to finish that." "On the contrary," Tsei said, straightening, "it would be dishonorable to treat your clan fluid with disrespect." They looked at the Bud Light tub. "Another," they declared. Someone on the Shal'ren flagship fainted.
"Do not let them have another," hissed one of Sarah's advisors. "If they get drunk on live broadcast, every late-night host on Earth will—" "Too late," Sarah said through gritted teeth. Tisei approached the beer tub with religious focus. A nearby staffer, desperate to avoid an interstellar incident, tried to swap the Bud Light for sparkling water. Tisei, now hyper-attuned to the blue logo clan marker, rejected it instantly. "This one," they said, choosing another Bud, "the marked fluid of your Bud family." The staffer nodded weakly. "Yes, that, exactly." "Can open." Psst. This time, the first gulp went down faster. Warmth spread like a sunrise through Tisei's translucent body. Their bioluminescent veins glowed a little brighter. "Ambassador," the liaison whispered urgently, "perhaps we should pace." "This is pacing," Tisei said calmly. "Humans ingest 24 in battle feasts. I am taking only 2. This demonstrates respect, but not recklessness." "That is literally recklessness," the liaison said, but quietly, because his career was already over. Nearby, a cluster of journalists pretended not to stare. "Do we run this?" a producer whispered. "First alien contact, drinking Bud Light. It looks like an ad." Technically, the can is turned just enough to avoid logo dominance, the legal correspondent said. We're safe. Also, this is the funniest thing that has ever happened. Sarah moved closer to Tisei. How are you feeling? She asked. Tisei tilted their head as if listening to internal music. Your world is vibrating pleasantly, they said. The light refracts more softly. My anxieties about the Council's trade demands have decreased by 27%. That's kind of the point, a nearby human murmured. My motor functions remain acceptable, Tisei continued, taking a careful step. They wobbled slightly, bioluminescence flickering in a pattern that, to other Shal'ren, would translate roughly as, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." Sarah tried one last time. We don't expect you to replicate our exact customs, she said gently. Cultural respect doesn't mean you have to risk your health. Tisei smiled, or the Shal'ren equivalent, a soft, harmonized color shift along their jawline. Ambassador Vega, our research indicated that humans are suspicious of those who do not share small discomforts. You call it breaking the ice. They raised the can slightly. The ice is, as you say, broken. On the flagship, the medical officer spoke up. The ambassador's serotonin analog levels are rising. They are entering what human literature calls happy drunk. Is that dangerous? The captain asked. Yes, the medic said soberly. To everyone else,
it started small. A slightly too loud laugh here. An overly earnest compliment there. Then Taisai discovered snacks. What are these? They asked, staring at a bowl. Chips, a staffer said. Potato, salt, oil. Taisai ate one. Their filaments flared with delight. It is crunchy, they said, and pointlessly pleasurable. That's snacks, the staffer said. No nutritional purpose, just vibes. Taisai took a handful. Within minutes, the combination of carbonation, salt, and ethanol had pushed their body into a strange, uncharted zone. They drifted away from the beer tub and into the crowd, glowing softly. Sarah tracked them like a loose missile. Ambassador, Taisai said to a tall general, your species has very expressive facial arrangements. The general blinked. Thank you. Taisai's filaments shimmered. You appear to be permanently on the verge of either commanding armies or discovering your offspring has lied about their education schedule. That is oddly specific, the general said. I am empathizing, Taisai said proudly. Your Bud Light has increased my social pattern recognition. The liaison made a helpless noise. Taisai glided toward a large decorative plant and paused. Ambassador Vega, Taisai called, your vegetation is ornamental. Yes, Sarah said, just for looks. Taisai considered. So you keep non-edible photosynthetic organisms indoors for no reason except beauty. Pretty much, Sarah said. Taisai turned to the nearest camera. They live on a death world and still allocate resources to purely decorative flora. This species is emotionally unhinged. The translator rendered it into 23 Earth languages in real time. Twitter died that night. A young intern approached Taisai with a tray of tiny hamburgers. "These are called sliders," she said nervously. "Would you like to—" Tai Sai took one, examined it, and said solemnly, "I must not. Your Bud Light has already compromised my judgment. If I introduce meat stacks, I may begin making trade decisions based on sauce quality." The intern walked away dazed. "That's the most responsible drunk I've ever seen." Through it all, Tai Sai kept muttering little observations. "Your concept of weekend is illogical, but appealing. Why is there a game where you throw an egg-shaped object and then crash into each other? For entertainment? Truly? You voluntarily watch fictional scenarios designed to produce stress while consuming relaxant fluids. This is advanced emotional masochism." Humans laughed uncomfortably. On the flagship, sociologists took frantic notes.
"Ambassador," the liaison whispered, "our internal schedule suggests we should withdraw to rest." "Nonsense," Tessari said. "I have achieved rapport. Observe, the humans are less rigid now. They approach me not as a fragile outsider, but as one of their own compromised pack." Indeed, nearby, 2 junior diplomats had started a conversation with Tessari about music. Tessari swayed gently as they described Shal'ren harmonic architecture, then listened to a human explain karaoke. "You gather in sound chambers," Tessari repeated slowly, "and take turns emitting imperfect renditions of shared cultural vibrations while ingesting Bud Light." "That's one way to describe it," the human said. "That is the most terrifying social mechanism I have ever heard," Tessari said. "I would like to try it." Sarah intervened. "No karaoke tonight," she said firmly. "Earth is not ready for that level of first contact." A waiter passed with a tray. On it, wine glasses, water, and one stray Bud Light can that had escaped. Tessari's hand moved like a reflex. "Ambassador," the liaison whispered. Tessari hesitated. They said, "Your concern indicates affection. I accept it, I ignore it, but I cherish it." Can, crack, sip. The third Bud hit different. Their inhibitions, not that Tessari had many to begin with, slid down another notch. They turned to a camera. "Attention Galaxy," Tessari said. "I have consumed your humans' Bud Light. It is a mild toxin that reduces fear and increases honesty. I now understand why they survive their world." Sarah made a slashing gesture at the camera operator. "Cut the feed. Cut." Too late. "Humans," Tessari continued, "wake up every day on a planet that throws storms, diseases, and economic systems at them. They invented this beverage not to escape reality, but to look it in the eye and say, 'Not tonight.' That is horrifying. That is admirable." On the flagship, the council went very, very quiet.
The next morning, Say's head was attempting to defect. Their visual field, normally sharp and multispectral, felt like it had been put through a blender. Internal readouts screamed dehydration, mild toxin leftover, regret levels elevated. They lay on a cushioned recovery couch aboard the flagship medical bay, glowing dimly. A Shal'ren medic hovered nearby. "How many Bud Lights did you consume?" they asked. "3, Say groaned. The medic dropped their tablet. "3? Humans consumed 24 in battle feasts," Say muttered. "I thought diplomacy required at least some show of resilience." "Ambassador," the medic said carefully, "you are not a battle feast. You are a bureaucrat." Say laughed weakly. "Not inspiring." Screens nearby looped clips from the previous night, sound muted, subtitles glowing. They watched themselves declare humans emotionally unhinged and admirable. They watched their commentary on snacks. They watched their almost karaoke request. "Did I damage negotiations?" they asked. The liaison shifted guiltily. "Records show public opinion on both sides is extremely positive," he said. "Humans are making humorous edits. They have made you into a meme." Say squinted. "What is meme?" "A repeating neuro-image used for social bonding through humor," the AI assistant explained. "Congratulations, you are now culturally significant." Say closed their eyes. "Wonderful." The captain entered, expression unreadable. "Ambassador," they said, "the council demands a report. They are alarmed by your ingestion of a human toxin on live feed. Some argue it is evidence that humans are chemically manipulating our leadership. Others," they paused, "found your honesty useful." "Honesty?" Say asked. The captain played a clip. Say describing humans' relationship with pain, their habit of laughing in the face of stress, their ritual of taking the edge off without solving underlying issues, yet still waking up and trying again. "It reframed our models," the captain said quietly. "It reframed our models. We assumed their self-destructive habits made them weaker. Your Bud Light speech suggested the opposite." Say rubbed her forehead. "It was not a speech. It was drunk rambling." "The line is thin," the captain said.
The Galactic Council chamber flickered with holographic feeds. On one side, Desaya, slightly paler than usual, but composed. On the other, representatives of dozens of species who had never tasted alcohol, but had now seen what 3 Bud Lights did to a senior diplomat. "We must ban all human toxic beverages from interstellar diplomacy," one delegate said. "Their Bud Light compromises higher reasoning." "Our higher reasoning was already compromised," another muttered. "We thought we could model them." The Council's central AI displayed a summary. Observation: humans voluntarily ingest ethanol, a toxic neurochemical, in social contexts, previously classified as irrational self-harm. New hypothesis: ritualized controlled damage functions as emotional training for chaotic environments. "What does that mean?" a delegate asked. "It means," the AI said, "that humans regularly practice being slightly impaired and still navigating complex situations. They train in chaos." Murmurs rippled. "And this Bud Light," another delegate said, "is their entry-level chaos serum." Saya cleared their throat. "I will not endorse human alcohol as a diplomatic tool. It is dangerous. It can lead to poor choices. It nearly led me to karaoke." Shudders. "However," Taya continued, "the experience was illuminating. Humans do not drink merely to escape. They drink to connect, to lower defenses when their world is too sharp, to tell truths they are too afraid to say while fully sober." "Like you calling them emotionally unhinged," someone said. "Yes," Tsaya said calmly, "and admirable. Both can be true." The council wrestled with this. Are they more dangerous because of this, or less? "Both," the AI said, "as usual with humans."
On Earth, the Bud Light incident had already become a late-night legend. Clips of Tassay philosophizing on chips and emotional masochism trended worldwide. Remixes dropped. Fan art appeared. Someone made a t-shirt that said, "This species is emotionally unhinged. Shal'ren ambassador, probably." At the formal debrief, Sarah sat across from Tassay once more. "I want to apologize," she said. "We should have controlled the environment better. Bud Light is not standard diplomatic protocol." Tassay tilted their head. "Your people loved it." "That's not the metric," Sarah said. "We care about your safety." "I was not safe," Tassay said. "I was honest. It was uncomfortable. It may have been necessary." She studied them. "Do you regret it?" "Parts," Tassay said. "My head regrets it. My reputation, less so." Their filaments glowed with amusement. "Do you regret offering us access to your weakness?" Sarah smiled faintly. "Beer isn't our weakness," she said. "If anything, it's a symptom." "Of what?" Tassay asked. "Of how hard this place can be," she said. "Of how much we want to feel okay for 5 minutes. Of how close we sometimes balance between breaking and laughing." Tassay considered that. "In that case," they said, "our people are debating whether to view this Bud Light as a threat or a teacher." "A teacher?" Sarah echoed. "It taught us that your species has been doing hard-mode life for a very long time, and you still find ways to toast to it."
Months later, the official summit report was published. The public version said, "The first Earth-Shal'ren diplomatic exchange was successful, with minor cultural misunderstandings regarding human fermented beverages." The classified addendum was more direct. "Do not, under any circumstances, underestimate a species that lives on a hazardous world, invents liquid toxins, drinks them socially, and still manages to build cooperation out of the hangovers." The Council ultimately agreed. Alcohol would be banned from formal interstellar proceedings. Unofficially, some delegations requested human advisors for social resilience training. They called it exposure to controlled human chaos. On a quiet evening, long after the summit, Sarah and Say sat on a balcony overlooking city lights. Between them, 2 glasses of water. Not everything needed to be a test. "Do you think our peoples will get along?" Sarah asked. Say watched cars flow like fireflies. "You are volatile, self-sabotaging, loud, addictive." "Thanks," Sarah said dryly. "You are also," Tassay continued, "remarkably skilled at turning pain into jokes, and jokes into connection, and connection into alliances. Even your Bud Light carries a story." "Of bad decisions?" she asked. "Of survival," Tassay said. "Of making something slightly awful and choosing to share it anyway." They paused. "I will never drink it again," they added. "Fair," Sarah said. "But," Tassay said, "when my people ask me what I learned from Earth, I will mention it, not as your proudest invention, but as a symbol." "Of what?" "Of a species," Tassay said, "that looks at a harsh universe and says, 'We're not okay, but we're still here.' Cheers." Sarah lifted her water glass. "To bad habits?" "To better uses for them," Tassay replied, clinking her own glass. Far above, somewhere in the dark between stars, a new line quietly appeared in the Council's files. "Humans, not safe, not stable, but very, very good at finding each other in the chaos." And for the first time, that was listed as an asset.